It's going live. And then what do I do? Cut and copy the link?
Yeah, once it goes live, you're going to,
It's okay.
there should be a share option.
How do you cut copy that?
Here we go. Get down at the bottom. There's the little arrow.
Hey guys.
The end screen.
There's
Where you can click that, and then it'll give you the link.
Okay, so I got it. Now what do I do?
Click here.
Yeah, down at the bottom where it says end stream, right next to it, click that little share arrow.
Oh, shoot.
Okay, hold on one sec.
The side. Okay.
Yeah, right there. Then
Okay,
there's
cut
the
and copy
link.
that.
So you're going to
Copy.
copy that and go to your other tab and say, sorry we had technical difficulties. Click this and you can join our live stream.
Okay. Kelsey, you might want to jump on there and let anyone know who's on that other one. Okay, well, thanks, Abram.
Yep, you got it. See you later.
All right, we are live officially, but man, that was tough. If you are watching this, wondering where the heck are you, we had to go and make a whole new live stream. For some reason, we had some serious technical difficulties. So, anyways, yeah, I'm excited to answer some questions that you guys have. I have a bunch of questions that everyone sent in. So hopefully this new place that we just created fills up. Again, if you're just coming on, so sorry. We had a bunch of technical difficulties. Actually wouldn't let us stream. So anyways, we had to create a new one. And so I'm just going to wait just a few seconds here while everyone comes in, and then we'll jump into answering some questions. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the School of Emotional Health. I know for us, it was such a success. We all just love teaching. It was one of the best things that we've done in a really long time. So yeah, if you loved it, leave us some feedback. But anyways, okay, I'm going to jump into answering some questions. And if you have questions while I'm going through this, feel free to, you can just comment in the chat over here, and I'll try and get to your questions too. So starting out here, how do you know if a counselor is a good fit for you? Is there any way to narrow down which counselor to move forward with? Let's start there. And then he goes on to say, or she does, how soon or how many sessions should I expect my counselor to have a rough plan of attack towards healing that they can share with me? That's such a great question. How do you know if you have the right counselor? For me, I've done this a long time. And so when I sit with somebody, in the first meeting, I love to hear, what do they expect to get out of it? What do you want to get out of the meeting? Where do you want to go in your life? And if somebody's telling me, I've struggled with pornography for a really long time, and I want to get free of that, and here's when it first started, I should have a good idea based upon in a couple meetings. Sorry, in the first meeting, I should have a really good idea of if we're going to be a good fit. Now, you should be able to ask your counselor, have you ever worked with someone who's dealt with this before, or who's gone through what I'm going through? Even just the symptoms. If you're struggling with anxiety, have you ever helped people through anxiety before? If they say, no, I haven't, then you're going to have an honest conversation. Do you think you can help me? And as we go through this journey, can you let me know, and can I let you know what I'm feeling? That way, if you really can't help me, can you refer me to someone who knows what they're doing? How long should it take for someone to build an action plan with you? Day one. Day one, in my mind, when somebody comes in, or definitely the second appointment, but usually the first time someone comes and sees me, depends on how complicated it is. But usually just for general counseling, when someone comes in and sees me, I can give you, you're going to have homework the first week. And from there, it may take a couple of weeks to actually figure out what's working for you and what isn't working for you. how your cycles work, why they work that way. But it's not going to be 10 appointments before we actually figure out why you are the way that you are. I'll say this: if you don't have confidence in your counselor, if you've seen your counselor longer than 3 months and you don't feel like you're making any progress, you probably need to switch it up, especially if you're doing the homework. Now, a lot of people don't see breakthrough. The most common reason why people don't get breakthrough, in my opinion, is they don't do the homework. They don't actually implement what the counselor is telling them to. Therefore, or coach or whatever. Therefore, there's no breakthrough. So if you want breakthrough in your counseling appointments, you got to do the homework. The rest is, to me, is up to the counselor to help you understand your cycle, what's happening, why it's happening that way. Yeah. So hopefully that helps you. After just coming out of a dating relationship, let's hit another question. What's actually the healthiest, which is actually the healthiest I've been in? I've discovered that subconsciously, I believe I'll be rejected, not accepted for my core values, need of vulnerability, intimacy, and deep level of commitment. I need to feel secure in these things and for them to be reciprocated before I move into being physical. Yeah, like kissing. Am I asking too much? She's asking for a guy's perspective. I feel like the lack of him reciprocating or pursuit is actually validating the rejection I'm afraid of. So here's the deal. When you're in a relationship, your intimacy level, your level of intimacy should always follow your trust. And anytime your intimacy level goes beyond your level of trust, you're in trouble. You're going to be in trouble. When you use your vulnerability, look inside of me, hear my deepest thoughts. Before you build a platform of trust, you're going to be in trouble. And so, yes, in a relationship where you start out and you're working towards being vulnerable, being intimate, you're going to want to sow into, are they safe? That's the first ladder. Are you safe enough to have fun with? The next question you're asking yourself is, are they fun? Can we have fun together? That may be a week before you actually figure out, yeah, we're fun enough, we gel enough that I want to take the next step. What's the next step? Well, eventually, I mean, long before you're kissing, at least in my mind, do they know how to have healthy boundaries? Do they know how to respect my boundaries? So I want to have needs in order for them to find out, do you respect the needs that I have? And in her case, she's asking, I want to feel pursued and I'm afraid of rejection. Well, welcome to the club. I think all of us are afraid of rejection, whether it came from your past or not. Everyone that I know of is afraid of rejection. We don't like rejection. And how you mitigate that is you build intentionally, not necessarily organically. You build intentionally. And repeated success builds trust over time. That's what you want in a relationship. You want repeated success. So I pursue, they pursue. They pursue, I pursue. We ask really good, I ask questions, they ask questions about me. That's one of the ladders that you're climbing up. One of the ladders in relationship is do they want to know me, not just want to be known? Because a lot of people just want to be known. So yes, I wouldn't move further into intimacy unless your level of trust builds. And as your level of trust builds, the level of intimacy builds. So if they're not reciprocating, then that tells you maybe they're not capable of reciprocating. Maybe they're not capable of a relationship that actually meets my needs as well. So that would be a great indicator that you might want to bounce out. Okay. Again, welcome. If you guys are just jumping on, we have some technical difficulties, so we're starting a little bit late. If you have questions, you can throw them over in the comment section and I'll be able to answer some questions. Here we go. How do I overcome negative relationships, emotions, and experiences? I think that you need to learn how to grieve and process pain in a healthy way. So if I was to ask you, what's your process for dealing with pain? If you can't tell me, like, here's the steps I go through when I'm processing pain, or here's how I grieve, then you really need to sit down and actually get a real process for working through pain. I'm not going to go through all the different steps, but I have 5 steps for processing pain that you can find if you go to the Emotional Prosperity YouTube page. You can find my 5 steps for processing pain, and literally just go through the 5 steps and learn them and practice them, write them out. So when you do a good job at processing pain and getting back to hope, you're going to feel really good about, I know that I grieved. You're going to feel really good about going into relationship, whatever relationship it is. And if you have been hurt in a relationship, you're going to be able to recover much quicker because you actually have a process that you're going through. So a lot of people, because you were never taught how to deal with pain, when you don't have a process for dealing with pain, for handling something that's that massive, it can be very intimidating. And so we're more reluctant to go into relationships or even deal with our past. We don't want to deal with our past because we don't have a great process. So I'd encourage you guys to take a week of time. If you don't have a process for pain, take a week, go watch the YouTube video that I already have and learn how to process through your pain. Okay. How do you deal with someone who's in a cycle of despair and hopelessness? So much so that they're not really making the effort to get well. They don't believe they'll get well. How do you break the vicious cycle? Man, when people are in cycles of despair, I guess a couple of questions I always have anytime that I'm getting ready to help somebody is, do you want help? Do you want to put effort and energy into it? And the challenge is, if someone wants you to work harder on their problem than they want to work, you're going to be so wore out. It's going to be really, really challenging. So you first want to find out, like, okay, maybe you don't want to get out of bed today, but if you're going to get well, you're going to want to own this problem. So I would say, let's start with a little bit of hope, and maybe an intervention. Like if it's a family member, you might have to have an intervention, someone that's really influential that they love and believe in, that can sit them down and go, hey, we want to help you, but we actually can't help you unless you want to help yourself. And if somebody doesn't want to help themselves, that's game over. But the first thing that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get some hope. I'll tell them stories of hope. I remember when I was in the middle of my nervous breakdown, my dad would talk to me on the phone, and he would just tell me stories of great men who were in the same spot as I was. Maybe Winston Churchill. He told me about Winston Churchill, and he told me about all these great men that were down and depressed, and how they overcame that. And he would encourage me with stories of hope, and then he would challenge me. Encourage me and then challenge me. I think if someone's willing to get help, anytime that they're so depressed, my first thing is like, are they eating well? Are they sleeping well? Are they exercising? Are they having fun? Do the basics first, because sometimes we go straight towards working on their problem. And the truth is, if they don't have enough energy to get out of bed, they don't have enough energy to work on their problem. So go have fun with them first. Get them out of bed, go have fun. Recharge their batteries first, and then address the hopelessness. Recharge their batteries with fun, with sleeping well, with exercising. So I think that because we see a problem, we instantly jump into, how do we fix it? We got to fix this problem right now. That's true. But the real issue is they don't have any energy. If they have lots of energy, then now's the time, and they're just hopeless. Okay, well, let's get some testimonies in them. It's like getting an IV. Let's get an IV in them. Let's get them going. And then let's start to create a plan. Let's start to create a plan for hope, plan to help them. But they have to be an owner. I just can't say that enough. They got to be an owner. So I also think that if people have a history of feeling despair, you could also say that that's depression. So you just want to make sure that there's not something medically wrong, chemically wrong. And I don't think medication is the answer for everything. I don't even think it's a long-term answer for a lot of things. But short-term, it can be really, really helpful, really beneficial. Also taking a blood test, making sure that you have the right vitamins, that you have the right hormones, everything's working well. Because you could spend a lot of time in counseling and not get anywhere simply because somebody's low in testosterone or their thyroid's off or something like that. So make sure that you're doing body, soul, and spirit work when you're working with somebody. Somebody just chatted over here. I have a friend that she is in bed until 3 months ago. She's in depression. Yeah. Again, anytime somebody has anxiety and depression, eat well, sleep well, exercise, have fun. That's the prescription I write before I write anything else. Go get a blood test, make sure that everything checks out. If everything checks out and they're eating well, sleeping well, exercising to have fun, then let's get them into, a counselor or somebody that can help promote some, changing the way they think, change the way they see themselves, cognitive behavior, things like that. But if they're not eating well, sleeping well, exercising, have fun, it doesn't really matter what you give them. They're going to be anemic. Okay, here we go. Next question. Do you have any advice on how to help my 3-year-old with separation anxiety and overcome trauma being lost at the mall? We prayed to break off trauma and cast out any spirit of helplessness and abandonment. I'm not an expert with young kids like 3-year-olds. I would allow them to kind of share and talk through what that felt like a little bit, as much as a 3-year-old can. But honestly, I'm not an expert in that area, so I'd hate to give you advice on something that I'm not great at. If Yvonne was here, she could. So maybe if you send that in an email to me, I'll be able to give that to her and she can give you a response. So how do you deal with the stress and anxiety that often accommodates ministry, missions, pastoral care, etc.? Yeah, I think that the same way that I managed stress before coming on in a ministry position. The thing that's unique to ministers is typically the outside world sees you as the answer to all their problems. You are the answer to all these things. And the truth is like, I'm not the answer to all your problems. So I like Jesus model for all of us. We have to learn how to set healthy boundaries with people. Assess what season am I in right now. Assess what is my role in the season. What's God actually asking me to do, and really to go from there. Because if you do stuff that God's not asking you to do, you're going to get burned out. But you'll do that in ministry. You'll do that in every single area of your life. So again, I think that really assessing, setting up healthy boundaries, having healthy needs. The biggest mistake I see people make in ministry is they put ministry before family. They put they put ministry before their needs. They put boundaries that protect the ministry, but not any boundaries that protect the emotional health, the spiritual health, the physical health of themselves and their family, and they go downhill from there. So their need to be needed and need to be significant. Our need, it really drives us. So I would be very, very careful. Hopefully that helps. I set lots of boundaries that help to protect relationship. And I think that you have to make peace with people not being happy with your decision too. A lot of people, I have people here all the time that are like, hey, I'd love to get lunch with you. I'm new to the church. And the truth is, I can't go to lunch with hardly anybody because in a church of 11,000, how can you go eat lunch with everyone that wants to eat lunch with you? And they're really frustrated. I'm new here. I can't believe there's not a pastor I can go eat lunch with. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I can't, even if it's free, I can't go to lunch with everyone. It just doesn't work. Great question. Really great question. It needs and boundaries. What do you recommend for someone who's interested in helping people deal with healing? I've been going through 3 years of healing for myself, and I like helping others. I don't have a degree or certificate. Yeah, it's great. I created a manual called Emotional Prosperity. You can go to jasonvalentin.com and check it out. I did an e-course and a manual, a counseling manual for people just like you. I'm in the same spot as you. I never went through quote unquote school, which I wish that I would have. I wish I would have went to school to get my degree. I just didn't. I started so young, got married at 18, got into counseling when I was 24 on school and ministry, and I really started there. So if you can serve somebody who's further along than you, that's the way to grow. Get some resources like I'm telling you about my resource. Doesn't have to be that one, but find some really great resources. Start to learn the tools. Do tons of appointments for free underneath a ministry that will let you serve them, volunteer for them. That's why church is such a great place. We have prayer ministers. We have prayer ministers, pastoral care ministers that come on, and they just necessarily don't have degrees. I don't even know that any of them have degrees, but they're starting to serve, and in serving, they start to learn. I have lots of people that have worked under me for a long time. They go to all the stuff that I do, and as a result of that, they're learning the tools. So I jump in and do thousands of appointments too. There's no substitute for trying and for doing. So a lot of people ask me, like, what's the secret? I'm like, I learn material, but more than learning, even if you go to school, let me just say this, even if you go to school for a long time, because I oversee the Transformation Center, and there's lots of people that are really, really qualified, even more qualified than I am. But when you come out of school, you still have to do real live appointments. And when the rubber meets the road, that's where you start to learn what works for you, and theory, and putting your theories into practice, and how to give people homework and how to motivate them. So yeah, learn tools, learn boundaries, learn needs, learn stuff to teach it and practice it. So that's what I'd say. Guys, your questions are awesome. Keep asking questions and I'll keep answering. When a leader shames you because they fear for you. Oh, let's see. Sorry. I think I jumped in halfway to this one. Maybe not. When a leader shames you because they fear for you, how do you know what is the best way to handle incorrect correction? Even when this is pointed out to a leader, this leader is hiding instead of owning it. Okay. If a leader, as someone that's over me, if they shame me, for starters, I'm going to give them really good feedback. I'm going to tell them about me. I'm not going to tell them about them. So when we learn how to communicate about what's going on inside of us, it allows other people to really hear us and what we're going through. So for instance, if my overseer shamed me and they said, Jay, you never do things right. I give you instructions, and I just don't think that you have what it takes to do this. Okay, that's full of shame. I could say, hey, when you tell me about, when you tell me about how you don't think that I have what it takes, that just I feel so much shame from that. And that's really hurtful. If they say, well, it's not my job to make you feel good. And I'm not the one that can control how much shame you feel. If they're not going to own it, then eventually I'm going to work my way out of that relationship, aren't I? That's not a place that I want to work. That's probably not a person that I want to be over me. If they don't know how to adjust to getting feedback, if it's not somebody I'm working for, then I move in, and they're in my circles of intimacy. You guys remember the circles of intimacy? I'm sure you do from somewhere, but think about a bullseye. The closer that somebody is to your bullseye, the more intimacy, the more access, the more input, the more connection they have to you. So if they don't know how to treat you well, you move them further and further and further and further away. That's boundaries. That's healthy boundaries. Now, you don't have to go, you're evil, jump out here. You have to go, hey, actually, the way you're talking to me doesn't work for me. It's really painful. If you want to give me feedback on my work that doesn't have to do with my identity, you think I'm a bad human being, I can hear that. If you just want to say, hey, I need you to grow in this skill, or hey, I need you to practice more, or hey, I don't feel listened to when I explained that to you yesterday, Jay, I can hear that. But I can't have you vomit on me or shame me and you stay right here. So the ability to set healthy boundaries, and the best way to learn that is through the Boundaries book. I mean, literally go to Barnes & Noble or download it online or listen to it and practice boundaries. Don't just read the book. The goal isn't to finish. The goal is to learn. So read it, practice it, do that again, do it all over again. So setting healthy boundaries. If somebody's shaming you, give them feedback. If they don't want to take ownership, you're going to have to move them to a place where you don't need them to take ownership. My wife, I'm going to need her to take ownership. She's in the closest place in my life. My parents, I'm going to need them to take ownership because they're still in a very close place. There are some people that have parents that they don't need their parents to take ownership because their parents aren't going to take ownership, and they've moved them out from the place of deep influence and connection. So hopefully that helps. Okay, yeah. If you guys have more questions, you can just type them over there. Your questions are awesome. I've heard teaching along the lines that all mental health issues are rooted in not knowing our identity in Christ. While I don't personally believe this, what evidence is there from the word do you use to support the need for counseling and psychotherapy? Okay, let's just start here. No, I don't believe that all mental health issues are rooted in not knowing our identity in Christ. I don't. There's just so many mental health issues. So many mental health issues. So I believe a lot of issues come from not being rooted in Christ and not knowing our identity in Christ. But I'll say this: I know people that have good identity in Christ, and they still have lots of mental health issues. So what scriptures do I have? Off the top of my head, I would have to prepare for that. I didn't prepare for that. I would say if you go in and you look up the word sozo, S-O-Z-O, the word sozo means saved, healed, and delivered. So when you start talking about our basis for being able to get somebody free, you're in the Bible when it talks about they were sozoed and they were sozoed, he's talking about not just saved or not just set free. They were saved, healed, and delivered. So again, sorry, I'm not fully prepared. Yep. Sorry, just got here. How do you handle advertisements and marketing to stay emotionally healthy? I'm not sure what that question is. I'm not sure what you mean by advertisements and marketing to stay emotionally healthy. Like if I am in agreement with people marketing stuff, if that's what you're asking, I mean, I market. I have an e-course that's coming out that I market. You know, I've had, and so I don't mind people putting out their stuff. I think that that's the only way that people know about great resources. But I'm not quite sure how to answer that question. How to work on fear with a person who has lived in fear almost all their life? Yeah, it's a great question. Disempowering fear is it's a process of when we empower fear as our master, we put fear in the God spot. So God is your source for identity, direction, protection, comfort, unconditional love, healing. There's some other things. God is your source for that. When you move fear in and you make fear-based decisions for your whole life, well, for starters, it's instinctual. Your number one driver as a human being, your number one most powerful driver as a human being is your instinct to survive. Your instinct to survive is your number one driver. So COVID happens, we all go, oh, how do I survive? Christianity, from the pulpit, what was used from the pulpit for so long? Hellfire and brimstone. If you don't get saved, you're going to go to hell. What are you triggering? You're triggering everyone's survival response. Oh, I'm going to get saved so I don't end up in hell. So I survive. If you don't ask Jesus into your heart, when the rapture happens, everyone's going to get left behind who doesn't have Jesus. It's fear. So a lot of times we think that we're empowering God because we're getting saved, but we still have fear as our master. So you need to go through a process of repentance, literally. What is fear doing for you? What is your belief system about fear? Why is it there? And it starts when we're young. You know, it starts from a very young age. Maybe you have trauma, legitimate trauma that you need to get rid of the trauma because you keep getting triggered all the time, and it's not a fair fight. So I would say for starters, if somebody has dealt with fear for a long, long time, I'm going to see if they actually have if it's a trauma issue that's going on. If it is, they need to go to trauma counseling, in my opinion. If the Lord doesn't just heal them, they need to go get some trauma therapy, which our transformation center has that. Yvonne's very good at that, and really get free from it. Sometimes counseling alone doesn't just help us if someone has bad trauma. The other side of that is start recognizing, for the average person that just deals with fear, start recognizing when you have fear-based thoughts. And instead of empowering and feeding that thought, okay, take it as a warning. Okay, fear, I see you. I hear you. I'm not going to hide from you. God, what's your answer to this? What is your answer? Because I don't want to act out of fear, but I still need to act. There's a train coming. I feel fear. You should feel fear. There's a train coming at me. Okay, I don't have to scream my head off. Maybe I'll just get off the tracks. Oh, that's great. That's great. So we want to learn what the proper process of repentance is so that you can disempower that fear. But ultimately, I'll tell you this, it's a partnership. When people have dealt with fear their whole entire life, it's a partnership of fear that you have to break. And that is very hard because you're going to have to put into practice every single day, disempowering that fear. That's why, again, I'll give you guys some more information, but I just finished an e-course. It's called Winning the War Within, and I do a whole thing on fear. So it will be released September 8th. You can check it out at, I believe, at jasonvalentin.com. Kelsey, is that correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can go to jasonvalentin.com and pre-order that if you want to. So Winning the War Within has a ton of these tools that I'm talking to you guys about. You can also pick up the book if you want to. So anyways, moving on. Great questions. How would you deal with the relationship with your dad where he is passive and you're the one chasing the relationship and putting all the effort in? Sammy, that's a great question. Really great question. And that's really challenging. Depends on how old you are. Let's say that you're my age. You're 40 years old and you're working on a relationship with your father and you're putting all the effort in. Can your dad take feedback? That's the first thing I'm going to do. First thing I'm going to do is go, hey, Dad, I feel like I'm really struggling here. I feel like I'm reaching out, and I would love to feel pursued too. What do you think about that? If your dad says, I can't really do that, or if he says, yeah, but he consistently doesn't do it, eventually you're going to have a conversation that says, hey, I feel like I'm putting myself out here, and I don't feel like it's reciprocated. Are you able to reciprocate at this point in your life? He may still say yeah, or he may be honest, say no. Okay, what can you do? You know, if you can't hang out once a week, are you at a spot where you can do a phone call once a month? Yeah, I can do that. You know, ultimately, here's what we do. You need to create the right expectation so that you don't live in pain your whole entire life. And that's why I want to communicate bravely if your parents aren't verbally abusive or something like that. But at that point, you should set a clear expectation and not put them close enough to where you're dealing with the pain all the time. But we're trying to set clear expectations so that we don't live in pain for a really long time, and share your needs so that you can reassess and reevaluate where they want to be. In every relationship, you're doing this. In any relationship, whether it's with a dad, a spouse, while you're building relationship, you're constantly defining the relationship, DTRing. You're constantly going, this is where I'm at. Where are you at? Oh, you're over here. Okay. Well, what are our expectations for one another? And based upon those expectations, that's where you then begin to work and fulfill those expectations. So it sounds like your dad either doesn't know your expectation of him and or can't fulfill it. If he doesn't know, then I would let him know what your expectation is and see if that's something that he wants to live up to or not. If he says he does, but he hasn't for a really long time, you're going to need to reassess your expectations and set him appropriately inside of your circles of intimacy. So my wife, who's at the closest circle of intimacy, it's God, and then my wife, and then my kids, and then family, and then on and on and on. People that are closer, the closer you get to my inner core, the more I'm expecting of you. And if you're not able to fulfill that expectation, and same with me, people I'm close to, they have an expectation of me. If I'm not able to fulfill that, then they're going to move me out, not maliciously, and they're going to move somebody else in who can meet that need. That's healthy relationship. Great question. How important is it to help individuals uproot ungodly beliefs in order to work through their inner healing issues? Brent, that's a great question. I think ultimately it's really, really healthy because you eventually, for non-Christians, you eventually get to an identity problem. What makes you awesome? We would say we're incredible because of how we are made. We are made in the image of Christ. We've been given his heart. We've been given his mind. We have his thoughts. We are built beautifully. He died for us. Therefore, he paid a price. He said, this is what you are worth right here. Well, also, he is our source. He's our source for peace. He's our source for joy. He's our source for finances. So what happens? A bunch of people are running around trying to find inner peace. Philippians 4 says, rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. Let your kindness be evident to all. It goes on to say, and the peace of God, which surpasses your understanding, it will guard your heart and your mind. It trumps any peace that you can make up, any peace that comes from logic, because the peace of God, it surpasses your understanding. So eventually, I think there's lots of stuff that you can do in inner healing for non-Christians, a ton of stuff. But eventually you run into a problem because our faith in God, our identity in Christ gives us value, and it's our source, our main source for a whole bunch of rock solid, beautiful, healthy things that we need. So yeah, being surrounded by or influenced by manipulative advertisements, drawing connections between emotions and having stuff / food. Being surrounded by Yeah, I don't know that I understand it still like 100%. I'm so sorry. I mean, any place that I feel manipulated, I'll just say, like, when I feel manipulated, that's a place where I set a boundary with. I'm just like, man, I just can't do it. Whether it's advertisements on Instagram or TV or, I mean, I see advertisements all over the place, whether it's Christian or non-Christian, where I'm just like, gosh, I just feel so manipulative. And I'm just like, I just have to put up like a, no thanks. Because the problem is I'll start to be critical. I'll criticize it. And then pretty soon I'm judgmental and it's just not fun. So hopefully that answers your question. I'm so sorry. Lynn, let's look at your question. My sister has been going through a messy divorce for the last 18 months. I'm so sorry to hear that. She often calls me to vent and thanks me after. I'm beginning to feel frustrated, but I feel guilty for feeling this way. Help. I guess a question I would have is when she vents, well, for starters, is she doing anything to get help besides talking to you? I really do think people need a place to vent. They need a place to vent. 18 months it's not too long, but it's getting on, that's where you're feeling like it's getting on the tail end of like, okay, I want to hear you. But if she's not taking ownership of her life, or if she's still the victim, it's like, I want to, okay, I have room for anybody to say, I'm so powerless. My husband trashed me, all that stuff. I can hear that for a long time. At some point, we're gonna want to turn the tables around and go, okay, but what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? So maybe, Lynn, maybe it's time to begin to challenge her a little bit, and start to go, hey, I love hearing you tell me what's going on inside of you, telling me the tough stuff, your hard days. But I also feel like this may be a new season for you to start answering the questions. Okay, what should you be powerful over? What can you do? What areas do you feel powerless in that you really need to feel powerful in? How can we improve your life? Maybe we need to get a counselor or a coach, or read get some resources to help get you powerful again and dreaming and out of pain and into. So again, Winning the War Within would be a great book for her to read, and the great e-course. I'm not trying to sell it. I wrote that book specifically about my divorce, coming out of divorce, working through my pain. So it sounds like you need to give her the I love hearing you process. Don't stop that. And tell me about what you're doing what's your plan for empowerment? What's your plan for engaging back into your dreams and goals, and kind of picking up the pieces and running. So it sounds like you need a transition. How would you help your kids understand forgiveness? Yeah, it's a great question. I think that the first level of forgiveness is a choice. That's the basic level of forgiveness. And if you heard my teaching on forgiveness, if you didn't hear it, I would encourage you to go back to the recordings from the School of Emotional Health and watch that recording on forgiveness. That way you actually understand how forgiveness works. So it would take me a long time to get to this place. But the first level is a choice level, and I need to forgive because I don't want to be stuck in bondage. It depends on how old the kids are. Here, if they're old enough to understand this, here's the thing. When you live in unforgiveness, it's because you are trying to get justice. You're basically saying you don't deserve to be off the hook. You deserve punishment, which is probably true. The problem is, with your unforgiveness comes bitterness, comes envy, comes jealousy. And those things are prisons. Envy, jealousy, unforgiveness, all equals pain. So it locks you up in this prison of pain. And when you're locked up in a prison of pain, the person that you are trying to keep in pain, they're out free. They're walking around. They're living their life, and you're the one stuck in pain. When you go, God, get justice on my behalf. Justice is not found in them getting what they did to you. Justice is found in the rebuilding of their life. So the Lord told me this one time. He said, there's no justice in a broken life. Jay, if somebody wrongs you and you go wrong them back, did it really fix the problem? No. Okay, if somebody wrongs you and God goes and wrongs them back, did that fix the ultimate problem? No. Okay, so what fixes the ultimate problem? The same thing that fixed me. They get what I don't deserve. I get what I didn't deserve. They get what they don't deserve. We all get to a place of healing and health. Try to help your kids understand that as good as possible. So, it's Judy. That's a tough one, but it really depends on how old they are. I would say for starters with kids, especially young kids, letting them vent and process. Usually parents, we are so quick, and myself included, to go like, hey, you don't want to live mad, or hey, I know they hurt you, but you need to forgive them. Instead of letting them vent a little bit, telling how hurt you are, they are, telling them how it felt, let them vent. Let them, the same thing that happens to you when you are able to vent, eventually you come down and you're like, okay. From that place, they're probably in a much better place to forgive than if you just shut them up and don't let them vent. So, how would you help someone who suffers from anxiety and battles mental illness? It's a great question. Depends on what kind of mental illness. For starters, do they have the right care? That's the first thing that comes to my mind. Are they seeing a psychiatrist or psychologist or a doctor? Do they have their mental illness under control? Do they have it under control? If not, to me, that's the first place to start. The other thing I would say, Linda, is eat well, sleep well, exercise, have fun. If you are on for that conversation, I'm such a huge advocate for that. Because think about it, if you're dealing with mental illness all the time and you're just emotionally exhausted, well, the the overflow of being exhausted all the time is you start to get anxiety. So how do we recharge? Eating well, sleeping well, exercising, have fun. I just think we have such a little value for those things and such a huge value for working on yourself and working hard at work, and which those things are great. But we don't have a huge value for just the really practical things. Gosh, I'm so tired. I don't know why. Whew. Here we go. What's your best advice for dealing with the inner critic when there has been a history of emotional and mental abuse? It's great, man. The inner critic. I think some of Brene Brown's teaching is very, very helpful. And let me just clarify, like, I don't believe everything that she believes, and her moral code, I don't know, is my moral code, but she has some really great tools and teaching for, for the inner critic. And I think learning self-compassion, learning how to find compassion for yourself and people who love themselves, people who believe they're worthy of love. The difference between them and people who don't love themselves, the only difference that Brene Brown found in her 5 years of research was people who love themselves believe that their story is what makes them beautiful. It's crazy. It's actually pretty phenomenal. They believe that their story, their failures, their successes, their scars, they actually believe those are what make me beautiful. They don't discount me. And when you're talking about the inner critic, I think that it's really important to go back to where those stories started, whether you were abused, whether you weren't abused, and begin to reconcile those. You might have to do it in a therapy session, with a trauma counselor. If you have a lot of trauma over your mental and emotional abuse, you might have to go back there. Sozo can really help God to come into those places where you were abused, and now you see God protect you and God take care of you, and how does God see you? But you're going to want to reconcile what you took on from the abuse. From there, a lot of compassion towards yourself, so that you're not looking at yourself through the abuser's eyes, and you're not looking at yourself through, if I was better, if I was more lovable, then I would have never been abused. If I was a better perfect, I would never, I would be more acceptable. And so the truth is, we all know logically that doesn't work, but deep down inside, we're gonna have to settle that. So the inner critic is it's a beast, man. Beyond that, it literally is cognitive therapy, changing the way that you think, day in, day out, doing the work day in, day out, day in, day out. So a couple quick tips that I do for changing the way that I think literally is on my phone. I'll put, how am I doing? So in the morning, I'll set an alarm, and so every morning, 8 a.m., it will go off, and it will say, how are you doing? It's my chance to learn really quick, to be self-aware, to go, oh, is there anything that's going on that I need to address right now? At lunchtime, my alarm goes off and it says, how's it going? And I'm going, okay, from breakfast to lunch, is there anything that I need to address that I haven't taken care of? And then at bedtime, it says, how did it go? So for instance, what makes, a lot of times we empower the critic because we're not actually taking care of ourselves very well. And so we have a bunch of judgment about ourselves and how we're not doing enough. And people say, like, you just need to love yourself better. I'm like, no, you need to take care of yourself better. So if you learn how to meet your needs on a regular basis, if you learn how to set boundaries really good, if you learn how to care for yourself, then you are practically saying you're worthy of love. So you're not just inside declaring I'm worthy of love and then living like crap, eating like crap, going to bed whenever you want to, not exercising, and then trying to say, man, you're really worthy of love. That's backwards. So by working on your self-awareness so that you know what your needs are, you know what your boundaries are, and you know what you need, you know how to take care of yourself, you are outwardly, you're physically and mentally saying you're worthy of love. I'm prioritizing you. Therefore, you are valuable. So I think I would go down some of those roads. Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much for coming on here. Again, I so appreciate your time with us at the School of Emotional Health and with the Transformation Center. If any of you are interested in setting up appointments with any of us at the Transformation Center, I don't currently take clients on, but if you're interested in getting more help in any of these areas, you can send us an email. You can go to the Transformation Center. What's our website, Kels?
Bethel.com/TC.
Bethel.com/TC. You can go there, set up an appointment with us. We'd love to work with you and help you. Also, again, I have my e-course coming out on the 8th. You can go to jasonvalentin.com, check that out. So appreciate you guys. Hopefully I was able to answer most of the questions. Otherwise, you guys are awesome. Take care.